Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about full-time versus part-time search when you are going out there looking for a business to buy. We're going to be comparing both, and I'm going to be giving you some real life examples and feedback that I've seen from people who have gone down both of these paths with the individuals that I've worked with over the course of time. So stay tuned and find out what I think is the wiser move.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win.
Hey everyone. Okay, so we're going to be talking about full-time versus part-time search. But before we get going, I want to let you know about an important development. I've been in this for a long time. Like this YouTube channel now is 11 years old. We just crossed the 50,000 subscriber mark. Thank you very much. And I've spent some time recently over the last couple of months working on some of the older materials that I had put together back when I got started. So last fall, I rewrote 21 Stupid Things People Do When Trying to Buy a Business and created it into a second edition, which is available in Kindle and print as the new second edition. I've also recently created second editions for franchise warnings and how to sell my own business. Now, these are available right now either from my own website, davidcbarnett.com, as PDFs or as paperback and Kindle. And they're significantly longer. I've got a lot more content in all of these books than the original ones, including things like case studies and just tons more material. They've all been updated significantly, but the audio books are not yet updated. So I just want to remind people of that. The new audio books will be coming later this year, but they have not been recorded yet. So, if you've been thinking about buying any of these books, or if you have never seen them before, now's a great time to get them because they're better than they were before. Anyway, let's get into today's topic, which is full time versus part time search. So, believe it or not, there are people who will quit their jobs, for example, and throw themselves into a full time effort to buy a business, and they'll make it their full-time, day job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing, and they will talk with brokers, talk with lenders, they will do the networking things that and other, um, other activities that could lead to them discovering an opportunity. And then there are people who do it part-time. They have a job, they have an income, and they're working at that income to produce an income. They're working at that job to get an income to offset their cost of living, and then looking for an opportunity on the side. And I came across a conversation on searchfunder.com where people were talking about this, and I thought, oh, this would be make an interesting video, because on Searchfunder there were people who were saying you need to commit yourself to this, and the only way to do that is to do it full time, and to really sort of like that, what is that old expression, like burn the ships, like we have to be committed to this course of action. We're going to do this, and we're going to be all in. And I can certainly understand sort of the attitude and the bravado and the positioning that comes from taking that point of view. But what I'd like to do today is I'd like to talk a little more in detail about some of the people that I've known over the course of time through my Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program, which of course is a group coaching program for people trying to buy a business. And in that program, like, it's all business buyers, right? And we've had people that were doing it full time, we've had people doing it part time, and we've also had another sort of measure or variation of buyers that I'm going to get into here today, because I think that um, looking at the whole full time versus part time search without considering this other group of people is a mistake. And who are the other group of people that I'm going to mention? It's people who already own businesses. So I've made videos about this before, but people who already own a business have incredible advantages in the world of search to go and find and buy another business. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. So I have some notes here that I put together. Um, you know, so we've got the two kinds of searchers: people who own a business and people who do not, right? So the people who don't own a business, obviously, they're motivated to make a transition. They want greater independence in their lives. They want to build wealth, and they will put themselves into one of two camps. They'll either start looking for a business on the side while they keep their job, or if they're in a position to do so, they will. You can quit your job and become full time at search, which basically means you're kind of putting yourself on hiatus. And the biggest weakness, of course, to becoming a full-time searcher is, how are you going to live? I mean, you can liken it to somebody who decides to stop working and go back to school, right? And when we all know people like this, right? Or people who, just finish high school and go to university. Like, how are you going to support yourself? It's usually through the depletion of savings, or maybe the accumulation of debt, or if you're lucky enough, you've got some kind of outside subsidy. So when we think of students, we often think, well, their parents will support them, for example. I've seen people do full-time searches where their spouse will support them if they're married and they have a spouse with a substantial enough income to be able to afford all the household expenses. So that's the number one thing, is like, how are you going to pay the bills while you do this thing? Um, and I think that the people that I have met who have been the most successful at the full-time search have been people that I would call truly independently wealthy. And here's why. The people who are truly independently wealthy, um, if they decide, I'm going to search for a business full time for 2 years, and they don't find a business to buy, they're still going to be fine. And they'll do something else. They'll start a business, get a job, continue to not work, and just live off their wealth. So so in our adventure group, we've had a couple of these people, and they've had net worths in the millions and millions of dollars, and they've just said, "Hey, you know what? I'm just going to do a full time search, and I'm going to put my full time effort into it." And I believe that full time efforts do get you further and faster than if you're doing something part time. I remember when I started this business that I have today, I kind of started it as a side hustle, and when my position ended at the job that I had at the time, I already had a pretty good level of earnings in that part-time side hustle. And so I was confident that if I put my full-time effort into it, that I would be able to grow it into a business big enough to support myself and support the family. And I was correct. And so I agree with everyone out there who says that if you do something full time, you will achieve better results faster. No question. Here's the problem, though, is that not everyone is in a position to be able to do that confidently. And if you take that position and take that route or course of action without the necessary resources, meaning without being a multi-million dollar net worth person, then you put yourself into a very weak position, because um, you basically give up the only point of leverage that a buyer has. And the only point of leverage that someone has when they're going to buy a business is the ability to not do a deal. So if you see a good business that you like and the price is too high, and you say, you know what, I can't afford to pay that price, or the deal doesn't make sense at that price, as long as you have options personally, you can say, no, that's too much. I can't do it. And you can tell that seller, I'm sorry, I won't do this deal. And by stepping back, if the seller doesn't have many options, that then will be the thing that will cause them to be willing to move. Right. So then maybe they come back after a few weeks and they say, well, maybe I can come down a little bit more. And then you re engage. Right. But if you don't have the options, if you are in your 20th month of searching and you only had enough money set aside to live on for 2 years, and you're invading your capital, which you're going to be using as a down payment on the business, you're becoming a weaker and weaker hand. If you want to think of this as like being at a poker table or something, your hand is literally getting weaker as each week goes by, because you are consuming your capital and you're spending your money. And so what will then happen is you put yourself into a position of compulsion where you can't afford to say no. If the business looks good and you think you can get a deal together of some kind, you will then want to do the deal even if the deal doesn't quite work for you. And many, many, many of the really awful deals that I have heard about or seen people or advised people on, it's been these buyers who are kind of in this place of desperation where they need to do a deal. They need to get an income. The first time I ran into this was in my business broker days when I helped a guy who was like a C-suite executive that had been parceled out from his position. They gave him like a 2-year severance arrangement, and he was basically at the end of his 2 years, and he hadn't been able to find a job. And his last ditch effort to get an income was to come see me and to buy a business. And he was basically like, I don't care what business it is as long as I can get an income. And he ended up buying a pizza shop. And um, you know, like because he was like out of options, right? And it kind of highlights the kind of position that you can put yourself in if you create a scenario where you're literally um, gambling on the idea that you can pull something off within certain time frame. And let's be very clear. No buyer can do anything to control what other people will do in something like the negotiation to buy a business. All you do as a buyer is you make offers. Offers are opportunities that sellers can choose to participate in or not. And so you don't control other people. The business owners own their businesses, it's property. And as a owner of property, it's up to you to decide what you want to do with the property, right? People can close businesses, they can sell them at a price that they're happy with. People can make really poor decisions in trying to sell their business. They can have unrealistic expectations. All that kind of stuff is true, but we can't make anyone do anything. So even though you can put 110% of effort into doing all of the things that are supposed to help you find a business, you may not find the right one, number one. And number two, if you do find the right business, you may not be able to buy it under deals that under terms that are acceptable to you or that will work. And so because of this fundamental lack of control, I've said this before, you can't control when you will buy a business. You can only control the things you do every day that will help create more opportunities for yourself to meet these people. Um, you're basically then gambling. You're gambling that you're going to find this scenario and be able to execute a deal within a time frame. And when you get online and you hear stories about people who've done this, of course, you hear a lot of stories of people who pull it off, and you hear very few stories of the people who spent 2 years and depleted their savings and didn't have any positive outcome, right? So, so now that you understand why I think it's important to have an income while you do a search so that you're never under compulsion to do a bad deal and you ideally are living below your means. So every month that goes by while you're doing a part-time search and you have an income, your capital base actually grows. So your hand, back to the poker table, your hand actually gets stronger as time goes on. And so now time works in your favor versus against you. This is why owning a business and being a searcher is so powerful because businesses that are profitable and earn money for their owners, you're number one, the balance sheet of the company is becoming stronger, and the company is often going to be the acquiring entity. And so, not only can you use resources you've accumulated like cash, but often you can use the balance sheet strength in combination with the acquired business to do the deal with the lender, right? And so this is where sometimes if you have a strong enough balance sheet, you can actually do acquisitions with no down payment because the balance sheet strength of the business that you own is strong enough to that when you combine them, the overall debt to equity ratio is good enough for the lender. So let's learn then from people who own businesses. How can we learn what they do and apply it to people who are not business owners who want to do searches? So some of the things that um, you know business owners will do when they want to grow their business through acquisition is that they will actually create processes and business systems within their company that facilitate the search and acquisition of other companies. So they will actually make it a function within their business. And so they could have employees within the business who have certain roles that are related to finding opportunities to make acquisition. They could have regular conversations with people like suppliers and other service providers, letting them know that they're in the market to acquire other businesses and to grow. And so they leverage not just their balance sheet, but they leverage relationships. They leverage the efforts of employees within the organization to go out and do these things. So one of the common things that I hear from people that are doing a part-time search is they'll say, I don't have enough time to do everything. And so how about building a search business? How would you do that if you were going to say, I want to create a business that is searching for something to buy? And you thought about it not like a job, but as a business, right? What would you do? Well, mm, in the most extreme example, you could hire an employee, right? Like a full-time employee. And I've had a conversation about this with someone who was a high income person. And I said, if you like private equity groups have teams of people that spend all day, every day just looking at deals. If you want to buy a business and you can afford it, why would you maybe not hire someone like a recently graduated business student or finance student and pay them to work for you to work full time doing search? Right. That's an extreme example, right? But you can pare it down and you can subdivide that and make it more palatable by saying, how can you parcel out certain aspects of the task to people on various platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, for example. And we've had people in the Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program do this quite successfully. There was a member in the past from New Jersey who wanted to buy a certain kind of business near him. And so he had a VA create a list of all the businesses in a certain category in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and create like a Google sheet with the address names of the businesses, the addresses, and then actually the VA went into like Google Street View and took screenshots and stuff, so that when the searcher would sit down in the evening after his day of work, he could sit down there and he could look at each one. He could see the business. He could look at this at the snapshot of what the business looked like from the outside, and then he would make a determination of whether he thought the business was big enough to meet his criteria. And if he thought it was a good one, then like he said, yeah, we're going to go reach out to this one. He then had another process for reaching out to the business and then for following up on that outreach. And he would use employed people through platforms like Fiverr to do a lot of this stuff for him. Right. So he was building a search business just like a business owner, employs other people to do things within the company. So we can do things like list building. You can employ people to do outreach if you want to. There's all kinds of um, sort of people that you can hire and just kind of pay by the hour or pay by the call to do cold calling for you, to do sales calls for you, etc. Um, Making things like pitch decks or offer letters. Like there's all kinds of people on these platforms that can do things like this. You can also take advantage of AI tools, you know, creating lists and creating emails and even tailoring outreach emails to each specific business based on information that might be found publicly is something you could program into a GPT on ChatGPT, for example. Um, Screening of confidential information memorandums or business profiles. Like you could create a GPT with a series of rules that you establish to help you screen through these documents more quickly so that you can more quickly triage what is something you want to look at or not. One of the members of the group sort of gave us a presentation. He had done several acquisitions and continues to look for acquisitions in a certain specific industry, and he had whittled it down to 12 pieces of information. So whenever he's talking with a business owner, he says, if you can send me these 12 items And so, P&L, the AR aging report, like certain things like that. He's like, 12 items. I will tell you within an hour whether or not I'm interested in having a conversation with you, and not about acquiring your business. So he's got this this series of things that he's looking for. Now, in order for you to be that fine tuned, you need to be industry specific. And this is one of the big problems that a lot of searchers have, is that they legitimately have no idea what they want to buy. And they'll use clever terms like industry agnostic, like, oh, I just want to buy a business that earns $500,000 a year that I can get for two times cash flow. And when I hear that, the very first thing that I say is, oh yeah, like would you buy I don't know, some kind of like, would you buy something in the adult entertainment industry that met that criteria? And then they're usually like, "Well, I don't know about that." Like, so seriously, like, figure out what kind of business you are open to owning, and what kind of business you can legitimately contribute expertise and know-how to, and create a criteria list, even if it may not be the ultimate be all end all limit to what you're willing to look at. Start somewhere, create a criteria so that you can then engage with other people and tools to help you do some of this lifting and automate it. And this way you can do a more effective part-time search, taking advantage of things like CRM tools to track your relationship and conversations with people. It is very, very common for people to have conversations with business owners who are not interested in selling. And then something over the course of the next couple of years changes in the business, and then they do want to sell. And if you've managed to keep in touch with that person through some kind of drip communication over time, then you may have a shot at having a conversation with them about buying the business, right? Before they get to a broker, for example. There's plenty of examples in our group coaching program, again, of people doing that. Um, Within a business, if you do own a business and you haven't thought about this before, um, implement something. So I've actually met business owners who have delegated search to someone on their staff. I've actually met, VPs of acquisition before. I've even seen some people do some really innovative things, like providing material and equipment to people who want to do startups in their industry in new markets, with an agreement that if they reach a certain size, that there's an option to like make an offer on them. Yeah, so kind of like offloading the burden of new location startup risk to entrepreneurs, and then later acquiring them if they're successful, sort of thing. Um, People who own a business can incentivize staff with bonuses for finding opportunities that end up in becoming conversations. Um, if you are small, or even if you're bigger, you could consider this part of corporate development, and actually think about this. Like, if you've got salespeople, for example, salespeople are out there talking to people all the time. You may have a commission structure for the salespeople, creating a second commission structure if these people bring in opportunities or discover opportunities to have acquisition conversations. You could really unleash some potential in the marketplace to find these uh, conversations out there. Anyway, so here's the key takeaways that I want to give you as far as the part-time versus full-time search. Um, I never recommend people go all in to buy a business unless they can afford the outcome of not being successful. And what that usually means is that it's really only the people who, um, you know, are very wealthy anyway. And so I have seen people leave those very intensive corporate careers, for example, where the people are working 60 hours a week, and they'll do a search, but they'll take some other kind of job that isn't so demanding on their time, to at least have an income that covers their living expenses, so that they are not in that position of compulsion. So I think it's smart to always have an income, regardless of who you are. Um, you can turn a part-time search into a strategic and effective search if you make a plan and turn it into a business in a way, even if you're the only person doing it. But leverage opportunities in the form of tools and people that you can hire on a one-off or part-time basis, or by the job using platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, like I said. Um, the key, whether you're a business owner now or not, is that if you want to have a successful search, you need to turn it into a business process, meaning it's got to be a repeatable and leverageable activity so that every day's efforts leads you towards increasing the opportunity for you to create a successful outcome for yourself. And so this is why industry focus, again, I'll mention it again, is so critical. Because if you say, I want to buy something in the flooring industry, for example, just to use that as an example. You're going to talk to flooring contractors, but then you can also talk to flooring wholesalers who sell the material. You can talk to the representatives of the manufacturers who come into the area. You can talk to the sellers of the tools who sell tools to the flooring contractors. You can talk with customers, big landlords and stuff who buy a lot of flooring and who have conversations with flooring contractors. Like, you can go up and down the entire ecosystem and meet all kinds of different people and really create opportunities to get closer and closer to the right conversation that is going to lead you to an opportunity to buy a business in that industry. If you're just all over the place, if you're talking with a flooring contractor about selling their business one day, and then a tow truck company about selling the next day, and then a flower shop the next day, you can't build any of those sort of leveraged webs of networks. Like, you just can't, because you're just all over the place. And so the people that I've seen have tremendous success, they have um, a mission, and they create a leveraged, repeatable system. So, just like you do in any kind of business system. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll remind everyone that if you're interested in buying a business, you should be heading over to businessbuyeradvantage.com, where you can learn about the online training and learn more about the group coaching program that I just mentioned. It's really a great program because you get together several times a month with a cohort of people who are all sort of on the same journey, and people share their stories about conversations with sellers, with lenders, with brokers, etc. People give each other ideas. You have access to the archive going back to 2018. It's the only place where you're going to get a front row seat on somebody else's deal, and learn about stuff that is normally just protected under a cone of silence and confidentiality. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. And if you want to share your experience in helping to build a system or using tools to do a search, please do so down in the comments. I know other people would definitely love to see what you've managed to make work. Cheers.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally, and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.